Kia ora tātou. I'm Siang, the marketing manager at Hell Pizza, and I'm super excited to welcome you all back for another stop on Hell Pizza's Great New Zealand Book Trip. Today we've got a really special live reading, as our talented guest is the winner of this year's prestigious Margaret Mahy Book of the Year Award. But before we begin, I just want to say how awesome it is to have you guys, so many of you guys here today. All of us at Hell absolutely love that we're able to help tamariki like you develop a passion for reading through the Hell Reading Challenge and also this Great New Zealand Book Trip. So thank you for joining us. Now, I'm really excited and honoured to welcome Matt Tait, who is a Kiwi illustrator and author who is going to take us on an immersive trip into the legendary Māori creation story, Te Wehenga, the separation of Ranginui and Papatūānuku. Some of you might already know and have seen Matt's illustrations already in some great stories like The Adventures of Tupaia, The Heading Dog Who Split in Half, Legends, and Tall Tales from New Zealand. Now, Matt was awarded the Margaret Mahy Book of the Year Award and Elise Locke Award for Non-Fiction at this year's New Zealand Book Awards for children and young adults. It was the first bilingual book to have received the Supreme Award for the night, which is pretty awesome. His book, Te Wehenga, The Separation of Ranginui and Papatūānuku, is a stunning retelling of the Māori creation story about the separation of Ranginui, Skyfather, and Papatūānuku, Earth Mother, weaving together te reo Māori and English with incredible illustrations that bring the whole legend to life. I don't know about you guys, but I'm super excited to hear straight from Matt about this epic tale. So now it's time to pass over to you, Matt, and I'll come back a little bit later to host some Q&As and, of course, announce the winners of today's book. So enjoy, and over to you, Matt.
Oh, tēnā koutou, morena. Gosh, there sure are a lot of you that have tuned in this morning. It's slightly intimidating, but that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, so my name's Matt Tait. I'm an illustrator and author. I began my illustration career, I suppose, quite a few years back now, but started out doing a lot of educational material, so the sorts of illustrations that you would see in school journals and those types of school resources. Eventually, I got the opportunity to illustrate some books, to work with writers as an illustrator. And the first one was The Heading Dog Who Split in Half, which I did with my friend Dr. Michael Brown, which is sort of a graphic novel format. After that, I did The Adventures of Tupaia with Courtney Sena Meredith, which was a great privilege to do, and ran in conjunction with the 250th anniversary of Captain Cook's first visit to Aotearoa, to these shores. And then Te Wehenga is my latest book. It's the first that I've illustrated and written myself. So that was a very big challenge. I'm certainly more comfortable drawing, making illustrations than I am writing. But it was a really good challenge, and I learned a lot. And yes, hopefully I'll get the opportunity to do a few more books like this. And I didn't want to talk too much about myself because some of that might be covered in your questions, and I don't want to preempt that. So what I thought I would do is I would just read Te Wehenga to you in both reo Māori and reo Pākehā, and then after that we'll go to questions. That's right, isn't it, Tiang?
Yep, that's right. I'm sure, like for myself, these kids would love to hear both te reo and Māori and te reo English.
Oh, ka pai. Yeah, so if I stumble a bit while I'm doing this, please forgive me. I've not actually read this book out loud, although I did, when I wrote it, I did try to write it with the rhythms of speech, so it could be effectively read out loud. So anyway, we'll see how it goes. This is a little bit of a experiment for me too. Te Wehenga, the separation of Ranginui and Papatūānuku. Te orokohanga. No mua I te timatanga ko te kore. Before the beginning, there was nothingness. Kore wahi, without time, without space. Engari, kei roto I te kore ko te korakora. Kei roto I te kore ko te pito mata. But within the nothingness was possibility. Kei roto I te kore ko te mauri. The nothingness held all things to come. Mai te kore ko te pō. From the nothingness came the night. He pō nui, he pō roa, he pō mutunga kore. A deep and eternal night. He pō marama kore. He pō mahana kore. Without light and without warmth. Me he karu e kimo ana I te pō, he pō kare, he whakaro. But from within the night, a thought awakened and developed. Kei roto I te pō ko te timatanga, ko te whanaketanga. The night held beginning. Ka haere tonu te pō tango, hipa tonu te wāroa, te wā tētaia, te whātau, no roto I te kōpū o te pō kere, ka puta ko Ranginui te matua, ko Papatūānuku te whaia. After countless eons, from the surrounding darkness came Ranginui the father and Papatūānuku the mother. Ka whātoro atu raua ki a raua, and they reached out to each other. Ngā tamariki. I roto I te pō uri, te pō mā taratara, ka tākoto tahi a rangi raua ko papa. In the dark and freezing night, Rangi and Papa lay close together. Ka moe tahi, ka āwhi tētahi ki tētahi anō I te aroha, holding tightly to each other in their love. Nā wai rā, ka puta mai, ka whānau mai te toko maharawa o ngā tamariki. And eventually from their union, many children were born. Tāria te wā, ka tūmai e nei tamariki hei atu o te ao. Aha ko tonu I taua wā, ka noho ngā wiki ngā tamariki. Ka tāmia I roto I te pauri kei wainga I te kiko o rātou mātua. In time, these children would become the gods of this world, but not yet. At that time, they were forced to creep and crawl, pressed together in the darkness between their parents' flesh. Mai rā nō kua noho pōngere rātou. He kore nō rātou I mōhio ki tētahi āhuatanga ke atu. Because they had always lived in the stifling darkness, they knew no better. ka piritata tonu a rangi ki a papa ki a rangi. And still, rangi and papa clung close together. Tērā pea, ka haere tonu ake tēnei āhuatanga. Things might have continued this way forever. Me kore ake o rātou mātua e huri I te moe, had not rangi and papa turned in their slumber. A ka tae ngā tamariki te kite tētahi hina tore I puta mai rā ki te angotanga I Waenganui I ngā tinana o rātou mātua. So the children were able to glimpse a dim light appearing in the space between their parents' body. Ka aranga mai tētahi whakaaro, tēnā pea, he awa no ki tua I tēnei awhi mutunga kore. Ka noho here koa pea tātou. They began to wonder, perhaps there is a world beyond this eternal embrace. Perhaps we are able to live free. Te tau tohe tohe. Nā reira, I whakakāngia he ahi āroto, ko te wawata me te wewehi. From this glimpse, desire and hope had been kindled. I rangona he tāwara huri noa I te pōuriuri, and a constant murmur could be heard in the darkness. Nā wai rā, ka karanga atu tētai, koia ko tāne. At last, someone called out, and it was Tāne. E toku whānau, my family. Kua rongo e nei tāringa I a koutou kupu, a ka whakaae. My beloved family, I've heard what you're saying, and I agree. Me kōrero rero tātou mō tēnei āhuatanga hau I puta mai ai. We must decide what to do about this new situation that has arisen. Engari, ko te mea tuatahi, me whai wāhi kia noho tahi ai tātou, whakawhiti kōrero ai. But first we must find somewhere that we can sit and talk freely, all of us together. Nā ko nā, ka hui rātou ki roto I te pito o Papatūānuku. And so they assembled within their mother's navel. He wāhi pai mō rātou katoa, where there was room enough for them all. I kōrero anō a Tāne, nāna te kaupapa I tuku. Tāne spoke again and set the subject for discussion. E mihi ana ki te whānau huri noa. Mēnā he pono te kōrero a rā tētahi awa no ki tua. Me pēhia tātou e haere ki taua ao. If a world truly does exist beyond our own, how might we find our way there? Kia tāne mauta ngā rākoi, kia ia ngā manu, kia ia te waonui e hōrapa mai rā. In time, the trees, the birds, the vast forests that stretch out before us would belong to Tāne Mahuta. Ātū tuatahi mai, ātū, I raro I te puku o Ranginui. Beneath the belly of Ranginui, tū was the first to stand. Kia tūmatauenga te pakanga, kia ia te rerenga toto, kia ia ngā mahi a ngā tāngata I te ao. To tūmatauenga would belong war, the flow of blood, the works of humanity upon the earth. Nā tū, Me whakamate tātou I o tātou mātua. Two spoke. We should kill our parents. Kaore kau o raua whakaaro I huri mai ki a tātou, ki o tātou aki hia rānei. Never have they spared us or our desires a single thought. Mā raua tātou e whakahere mai ki kōnei, mō ake tōnu atu. E kore raua e tuku I a tātou ki a puta ki te ao. They will keep us here forever and never allow us to emerge into the world outside. Whakarongo mai I te mininga nei, no ngā mātua te he, mā ngā tamariki te whakautu. Listen, all of you. Our parents have wronged us, and we, their children, must respond. I pūpuki ake te amu I te hunga rā, kia tū rawa mai arongo. An angry murmur began to grow among the assembly until at last rongo stood. Kia rongo mā tāne te māra, kia ia te kumara, kia ia te rangimarie me te manaakitanga. To rongo mā tāne would belong the garden, the kumara, peacemaking and generosity. Ki ārongo, e tū, kia tau te mauri, kia kaua tātou e pērā, kore rawa tēnei whakaae. Rongo spoke. Calm yourself too, we must not do this. I for one will never agree. Whai muri atu kātū hoki a Haumia. Then Haumia also stood. Kia Haumia teke te aruhe, ki a ia ngā kai tupu noa o te ngāhere. To Haumia teke would belong the fern root and all the wild foods of the forest. Nā Haumia, kua kōrero tika arongo, e whakae ana, e tautoko ana, kau e whai ngā kupu atu, kei mahi kino whakaharahara tātou. Haumia said, I stand to support my brother Rongo. He speaks the truth. We should pay no heed to Tū's words, lest we commit a terrible wrong. I pupu haere ake te pukuriri no roto I a Tū, hei tāna kua takahia o tōna mana, a ko te āhua rā, te whakarite ia kia tū no whiu kōrero ai, whai a ka Tū a tāne. Tū felt himself belittled and anger grew within him. It appeared as if he might leap up to speak again when suddenly Tāne stood. E te whānau, he ara anō kei mua I a tātou. He aha tātou e mahi tūki no pērā ai. Ka tae e tātou raua, te whakawehe ke. But whānau, wait, there's another way. There's no need for us to do this awful thing when we can simply separate our parents from each other. Hi nana ana te kānohi o Tū, heoi, kānoho waka ngū tōnu ia. Tū glowered, but remained sitting silently. Ka Tū ke a Tangaroa. Instead, Tangaroa rose to his feet. Kia Tangaroa ngā ika, kia ia te tai, kia ia te whakapūpukitanga o te moana whakahara ki te pai. To Tangaroa would belong the fish, the tides, the swell of the vast ocean. Kia Tangaroa. Mēnā ka haere whakamua te mahi nei, me ki, ko te rapu I tēnei ao ki tua, kia whai tonu tātou I tā tāne whakatakoto ai. Tangaroa said, if we must proceed with the search for a world beyond this one, we should certainly follow Tāne's plan. O te rā, ka pēhia e tūtuki ai. But the question is, how should it be achieved? Heoi, ka huri tōnu te whiriwhiri, aro atu, aro mai, a nā wai rā, kua whakaaete nuinga ki tā tāne rautaki. So the discussion continued back and forth until at long last most had agreed to Tāne's plan. Kia tāwhiri mātea te waho te marangai ki uta, ki a ia te āwhā e mākere ana ki tai. To tāwhiri mātea would belong the mouth of the storm that batters the land, the gale that descends upon the sea. Ko tāwhiri anake tū moki moki ki te whakahi. It was tāwhiri alone who stood in opposition. Nā tāwhiri. E taku whānau, kia āta mahara. E hara tēnei te pātai me pēhia tātou e mahi, e kao. Ko te pātai ke ko tēnei, me mahi tātou. Nā reire ki ana hau, kia kaua e mahi. Kei whakaurihia tēnei hei hoariri pūmau ki a kouta. Ka mutu. Tāwhiri mātea said, my family, think carefully. The question is not, how might we do this? But instead, should we? And I say we should not. Go no further, or you will make an enemy of me forever. Kaore rātou I whakarongo. But they did not listen. Te Wehenga. Nā reira, atu ia tāwhiri, nāna I whakahe ki, koe nei te whakaetanga. Ka whakamātau ia atua, ki te whakawehe atu I ngā mātua. And so, apart from tāwhiri who had refused, it was agreed that each of the gods would take turns attempting to separate their parents using their own strength. Riaka ana ngā uaua, te rere hoki o te werawera I a rātou ngā tamariki, ko rongo, ko haumia, ko tangaroa mā, ka tū atu, ka tū mai, ka whakapau I o rātou kaha, kia hikina ake ārangi ia papa. Muscles strained and sweat flowed as each atua, rongo, haumia, tangaroa, heaved and strained one after the other to lift rangi away from papa. Ako ngā mahi mārohirohi atu, auare ake. Even the mighty efforts of two were to no avail. I ngere tōnu te katoa, kia tai rawa ki te wā ia tāne. So it was that all of the atua failed until finally it came to Tāne's turn. Kua āta titiroa tāne ki ngā mahi a ona whanaunga. Nāna no ona pokohiwi I whakatākoto ki runga ia Papatūānuku, ka whakamahi a ona hūha kaharawa a ka whakatau ke haere I a Ranginui. Tāne had watched the efforts of his siblings carefully. Bracing his shoulders against Papatūānuku, he used the strength of his powerful thighs to gradually push Ranginui upwards and away. Kaore he tangata e mōhio ana ki te roanga o tāna kohakoha. He tau mano, he roa noa atu pēr. No one knows for how long he struggled, for innumerable years, and perhaps much longer. Engari, ka manoa roa, ka haere tōnu ia. But he remained steadfast. Ka karanga a tāne. Kia whakawhānuitia, kia hōrapa mai rā te ao. Tāne cried, let the space between be widened, let the world spread out before us. Ana, e mahi ana te pauri. See, the darkness clears. O te rā, ka piri tōnu a rangi raua ko papa ki a raua anō. But still, Rangi and Papa clung to each other. Ka karanga a tāne, e tū, a whinatia mai. So tāne cried out, tū, help me. Ka whāwhāria e tū tana toki, ka kōkiri mai, ka tīmata ki te hauhau I ngā ringaringa o ngā mātua. And taking hold of his axe, Tu leapt up and began to hack at his parents' arms. Ka tangi ke atu, a rangi raua ko papa. Au we te mamai, kāti rā. Rangi and Papa screamed, the pain, stop, please, no more. E aku tamariki, he a koutou e mahi pēnā ai. My children, why are you doing this? Engari, ka haere tōnu a tāne, a tū, a ia raua e mahi ana. Ka rere te toto ki te whenua, ka tō punitia te one ki raro. But Tāne and Tu continued with their work, and as they did so, the blood flowed freely onto the ground, soaking the soil beneath. Ka haere tonu kia wetekina rāno o raua mātua. And they didn't stop until their parents' embrace had been finally severed. Ahakoa tonu, kaore anō te mahi kia oti. Even so, the work is not yet done. I wainga I ngā tinana o ngā mātua, nā ngā tamariki tētahi pau teitei rawa I whakatū. Hei whakawehe katoa I a rangi rawa ko papa. Between their parents' bodies, the children erected a pole of enormous height to ensure that Rangi and Papa should always remain separated. Kua whakamutua te āwhiroa a Ranginui raua ko Papatūānuku. Me te aha, kua ngaro raua I a raua anō mō āki tōnu atu. The long embrace of Ranginui and Papatūānuku was now ended, and thus they were lost to each other forever. Ka tū ake ngā tamariki ki runga I tō rātau whaia, te whenua whakararo. Now the children stood upright upon their mother, upon the earth beneath. Ka titiro ake ki tō rātau matua, ki te rangi whakarunga. Now they looked up toward their father, toward the sky above. Ia rātau e tūwana I reira, I runga I te one whero, ka kōkiri mai rā ngā hau, ka whakaki ai te wāhi hou. He hau tangitangi, he hau kanikani, he hau whakatutu puehu kia koro whiowhio. As they stood there upon the red earth, the winds rushed in, howling and dancing, to fill this new and empty space, stirring the dust beneath into great whirling columns. Ka taia e ngā tamariki a rangi raua ko papa te whēkite mai tāwhiti rā o te whitinga mai o te ao. At last, the children of Rangi and Papa were able to glimpse, shining towards them from the far, far distance, the dim light of the world. Kua mutu. Thank you.
No, thank you, Matt. Yeah, that was amazing. It's amazing how you were able to tell such a complex story in relatively just a few words. And kind of together with your illustrations, your storytelling it's inspirational. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Cool. All right. Well, straight from that reading, I think we should get into some Q&As. And we've got a lot to get through, so we might not get to all of your questions. So sorry, and we apologize, but we'll get through as many as we can. All right. Let's kick it off about some questions about Te Wehenga. Seaton School. This is a question from room 7, Seaton School. We found it dark and dramatic. How did you feel when you were writing it?
Yeah, that's right. It is a dark and dramatic story, and telling it really affected me, actually, and finding ways to tell it. Really did affect me, and the whole process was quite a lengthy one. It took around about probably 2 years, and at times, yes, it was very difficult for me, partly because of the darkness and the drama of the story, but also because of the depth of the story, and probably the biggest challenge for me while I was doing it was how could I get that across. It was really important for me to really get across and embody that darkness and drama, and I had to do a lot of thinking about how to do that.
Yep. I guess the story, there's lots of different levels for it, right? And I guess you had to find a bit of a balance for because you could write the story for adults, but you could also write the story for younger readers and things like that. So yeah, I can see why it was quite a challenge for you, and you did amazing. Cool. So that answers a couple questions from Paispa School and also room 14 from Manuera Intermediate. So we'll move to a question from Palmerston North Intermediate. They wanted to know why you chose to write this in Te Reo Māori and also Te Reo English.
So when I thought about doing the story, I thought that if I was going to do it, then it should be told first and foremost in Te Reo Māori. And so when I wrote the kupu, the words, I wrote it first of all in Te Reo Māori, and then later wrote it in English, rewrote it, I suppose, in English. But yeah, so I felt that it should be led by Te Reo Māori, that that was the language in which it was originally told, and I wanted to kind of follow that. But I also wanted it to be accessible for everyone, and so I just I thought that this might be a good way of doing it, of sort of using both languages, but rather than sort of subtitling it with English, sort of working both languages in with one another as sort of part of the pictures as a whole. Yeah, so I mean, I teach Reo Māori also, and so that was also part of my motivation, is I thought that I could perhaps produce a useful resource for te reo Māori learners. Mm.
Oh, cool. Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. And about how yeah, the story came from the Māori culture and the culture of Aotearoa. So the original language it was told in is so important. And I love that you've made it accessible as well for more people to enjoy. So thank you. Um, Now, yeah, so I guess it leads on to the next question. Really, is do you plan to continue writing and illustrating more Māori myths and legends?
Yeah, so I certainly considered or have been thinking about doing another book, perhaps sort of picking up where this book leaves off with the opening up of Te Ao Marama. Originally, when I was thinking about this book, I was going to actually continue the story up to Te Pakanga ngā Atua, which is the war between the gods, because as you see in the story, not all of the gods agreed with the separation of the appearance, and eventually that breaks out into a sort of a grand scale battle between some of the Atua. And however, I pretty quickly realized that that probably deserved a whole other story all to itself. And so, yes, so I'm thinking about that, perhaps doing that. Mm.
Oh, cool, awesome. The bar's set pretty high now.
Yes, no, I'm aware.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm not alone, but yeah, I'm sure a lot of people will be looking forward to your next works. Cool. Yeah, so let's move on to some questions about yourself. Like a lot of the kids in the tamariki that tune in, quite often enjoy hearing about the authors and the illustrators that come on here. So yeah, so let's start with Kaikoi West School. They wanted to know whether you've always spoken te reo Māori.
No, I started to learn when I was probably around 12, I think. I learnt through high school, and I also did, I think, 2 or 3 years at university. And then after that, for one reason and another, I largely kind of let it drop, actually. And until I had a bit of a realization a few years ago, I'm not sure how many, it's a few years ago now, that it was a mistake to have dropped the reo like that, and I really needed to return. And so I found Te Atarangi, which is a sort of grassroots reo teaching and revitalization organization. I found that they took classes in Motueka, which is a town near where I live. And so I returned to the reo with their help, and so I always must give huge mihi to Te Atarangi, because they brought the reo out of me. It was in there, but I just didn't know how to access it, and they showed me how to access it. And now I also teach for them.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. And since you started teaching for them, have you found that the recent sort of resurgence of te reo Māori sort of has become, I guess, more popular, and have you seen it, in terms of within your classes?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the biggest problems that we have is finding enough kaiako, enough teachers to meet the demand from the community. Yeah, so there is a big upswell of desire to learn. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, I guess that's a great problem to have then, for you guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Cool. Now, Benny Dale wanted to know where you grew up, and where, like, a bit about your history, where you grew up, where you went to school, and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I was born in Ōtautahi in Christchurch, and went to Avondale Primary, Chislewood Intermediate, and then when I was around 11 or 12, I think the whānau moved to Kirikiriroa, to Hamilton, which is where I started learning te reo Māori at Hillcrest High School. After that, we moved to Napier, and eventually ended up in Te Tauihu o Te Waka o Maui, which is the top of the South Island, where I, despite all of my whānau having moved away, I still live to this day.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so you moved around quite a lot.
Yes, yeah, not for a while now though, but when I was younger.
When you were little, yeah, cool. All right. Now te whare manakitanga, they wanted to know who is the Māori atua that you feel most connected with.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say probably the atua that I feel most connected to, just because I see them every day, Ranginui and Papatūānuku. Yeah, so I see them every day. I mihi to them every day, and so so it would be them. However, having said that, I think all of the atua, in some way they reflect parts of ourselves. So at different times I might relate more to, to one over another. As my kind of moods change, as my outlook changes, I might look to one or other of the atua, or perhaps just as an example of how to behave.
Yeah, and that totally makes sense. I think in other cultures we see a lot of different atuas as well, and they reflect a lot of the human emotions and the human qualities, kind of like specialists in that realm. Yeah, cool. Now we've got time for probably one or two more. So Lucy Tait from Ashburton Intermediate would like to know if you've got a favorite drawing that you've done, and why, and why is it your favorite?
A favorite drawing that I've done? Gosh.
I imagine you would have done quite a few.
Yes, that's why this is a very difficult question. Well, what I could do is, I'm not sure how good the light is, but I'll try. I'll show you. Certainly, while my opinion on this changes all the time, I'll show you my favorite pages from Te Wehenga currently. So hopefully, I'm not sure if you can see that.
Oh, yeah.
How does that look, Xiang?
Yep, pull it a little bit back, a little bit. Perfect. Yeah, that's good. Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably my favorite from Te Wehenga just at the moment. But like I say, my opinion changes all the time.
Cool. And then one last one, which again the tamariki love to hear about, is when you were younger, did you have a favorite author or a favorite, favorite book?
So it's sort of hard to single out a single favorite thing, but I would say, like, I read lots of books, some of the classics that, that you all know still to this day. So, for instance, Roald Dahl was a big favorite. But my true love really was for comics, and I love things like Tintin and Asterix and those sorts of things. Other types of comics, and I still do. And that's probably actually how I first got into illustration, was by sort of making my own comics. Yeah, so they were my first big love, and I continue to love them to death to this day.
Cool. Yeah, awesome. And it makes total sense that being an illustrator, comics were your first love and still a love.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Hey, our time is up today. But before I go, we're going to announce the winners of today's books. And the winners go to Manuera Intermediate and also Masterton Primary. So congratulations.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, ka pai. Before we go, thank you everyone for joining us again. We hope you tune in for our next one. So keep an eye on our social media and for the announcements. But before I go, I just want to say thanks so much, Matt, for joining us and taking us on this journey. I'm sure I'm not the only one thinking it, but thank you. The significance of Te Wehenga can't really be understated. Not only for sort of promoting and keeping Te Reo Māori alive, but also the importance of the cultural aspect for Aotearoa. So retelling these stories like Te Wehenga, is so important. So we really hope you and look forward to your next works.
Thank you very much. Kia ora.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us again, and ka kite.
Ka kite.